I have never, ever liked wide body paddles. I didn't use them, and I was honestly really loath to recommend them to my clients. I still don't love the look of them, and up until recently, they've always felt like I was swinging a frying pan. If you're me, that's a pretty unpleasant sensation, and it also tends to play havoc on my elbow. That's all changed for me in the past month, and I'll tell you why. Let's get into it. A little over a month ago, I tried my buddy Jake's Selkirk Labs Project BOOMSTIK in the wide body shape, this guy right here. For a while, I hadn't noticed that he was even using the wide body. At all the places that I play rec, and also with the vast majority of my clients, the elongated shape pretty much reigns supreme. A lot of pickleball content creators have talked about why they believe we don't see more people out in the wild using hybrid and wide body shapes, despite the fact that those shapes would actually serve most people's games better. I agree with the idea that shorter and wider paddle shapes are indeed better for a lot of players. And people often, I think, just go with the elongated shapes because that's what somebody has told them that they should be using. It's further complicated by the fact that the vast majority of pro players also use elongated shapes. Getting back to Jake's wide body BOOMSTIK though, with the exception of an overgrip, he runs his BOOMSTIK paddle exactly in stock form, so no extra weight, no Hesacore or any other similar textured grip at all. Pretty much the as it came from the factory setup. I figured I'd give the wide body thing one more try, just in case a client here or there might actually still prefer it. I did not want to like this paddle, but from the moment I started hitting the wide body BOOMSTIK, it was just not what I expected, and almost entirely in a good way. I'm going to talk about the wide body BOOMSTIK in a bit of an unusual way, but it's just kind of how my brain works, so please bear with me on it. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a feel guy above all else when it comes to paddles. Now, I do take the metrics that the other creators and companies list out for paddles, relative power, pop, and spin on a grand scale. I think those do matter to me. But those things on paper only mean so much, and there are so many factors at play that can influence those numbers. For me, I need to get a paddle out there on the court and hit a bunch of balls to see what the thing actually feels like. The first surprise the wide body BOOMSTIK gave me was in the feel. While it still has a similar feel kind of to its elongated cousin, the wide body definitely feels softer, at least to me. It feels like it absorbs the ball a little bit more, and as if I can feel the ball dwelling on the paddle for just a split second longer on the paddle face. Now, it's still not a soft feeling paddle, but on ultra powerful all foam builds, if I can get any bit of a softer feel, then I'm all for it. I don't know if this feel difference is coming from the higher twist weight of the wide body shape, or maybe it's something having to do with how the wider shape of the core interacts with the ball. I have noticed that the pitch of the ball hitting the wide body is definitely lower pitched than on the elongated, especially with the more recently produced units anyway. Maybe there's a density difference happening. I don't know, to be honest, but whatever is going on, I like the end result. Historically, one of the issues that I've had with wide body shapes, even ones that sport a supposedly longer handle, is the way the taper of the neck tends to be, because of that wider face. I've often found that my two-handed ready position is really uncomfortable on a wide body because of that thicker neck shape. Even though the handle on the wide body BOOMSTIK is technically a tiny bit shorter than its elongated cousin, I've had no issues at all getting both hands on the handle. So just like this. To me, it feels nearly identical to the taper on the elongated. I actually like the feel of the handle more on the wide body, which is kind of bizarre for me, but it is true. Two of the big selling points to wide body paddles are the lower swing weights and the higher twist weights, when you compare them to an elongated or a hybrid shape. These factors give you a paddle that's faster at the non-volley zone and hands exchanges, and also a paddle that's generally at least more forgiving on off-center hits, which can sometimes translate to more consistent resets. The wide body BOOMSTIK is definitely still at the top end of power paddles, so I'm not going to lie to you and say that this is an easy paddle to control, because it isn't. But I would say that it's easier to control for sure than its elongated cousin. I think the wide-body boomstick is easier to control because of its power to pop to spin balance. Now, what the heck does that mean? Because of its dimensions primarily, the wide body is less powerful than the elongated boomstick. However, it's just as poppy and spinny as its elongated cousin. Because the power is ever so slightly turned down, a swing that's the same speed will deliver a very spinny ball still, but with just a little bit less overall pace. For me, what this translates to is straight up more balls staying in the court. One of the biggest criticisms of the boomstick line in general is that both paddles are so powerful and poppy that they can be kind of tough to control, especially on drives, speed-ups, and putaways. This, I believe anyway, is because their power and pop outpace the paddle's ability to apply spin on the ball. Even with high spin numbers, the ratio still tips more towards the power and pop. On the wide body though, I think those three metrics are more closely aligned, and this definitely makes a positive difference. Would I love to see a Selkirk all-foam paddle where in both shapes, the spin is the highest metric and the power and pop are dialed down? Yeah, I would love to see that, and spoiler alert, it's coming soon. For the three of you that actually care about this, my setup for the wide-body boomstick is a pink Hesacore grip, my usual UDRIPPIN Pro Tour Overgrip, and exactly one Selkirk tungsten strip split into two pieces and placed at the throw of the paddle. That puts the static weight of my unit anyway at around 8.5 or a little higher. Even at that weight, it feels very, very fast in the hand and it still hits like a truck. So, what's the so what? I would say if you're somebody considering the Selkirk Labs Project Boomstick, don't discount the wide body. Find a local advocate, a retailer that does a loaner program, or maybe a friend who'll let you give theirs a go. I think you might just be pleasantly surprised like I was. If you're in Central Florida, hit me up and we can get on a court. Until then, I'll see you on the virtual courts.